Hi, Valerie. How are you?
Oh, hanging in, Adrianne, I think would be the word at the moment.
I know. Well, you and I have known each other for many, many decades, and we've lost a little bit of touch, but you've always been very near and dear to my heart for many different reasons. You are an incredibly strong, powerful, fearless woman that I've always looked up to. You have had the best dating advice for ever and ever and ever. Lots of people have always used things that you have chatted about. But more recently, you and I connected and we started chatting, and, we were always going to do this podcast. However, as soon as you and I started talking, aside from having tears and goosebumps of what you have gone through in the last few years, you have said that it was okay for you and I to chat about it. So thank you so much
Yes,
for that opportunity.
yes, indeed.
Why don't you tell some of our viewers who don't know who you are, sort of from a professional standpoint, where you've been and where you're at now? And then I really do want to dive into some of the things that you've endured in the last year or two.
Okay, thanks, Adrianne. Well, I've been a journalist in newspapers all my life, pretty well, except for the odd break, I think. And I've written 3 books, and I was very keen, if you like, on how they came about. Was simply I was very keen on making older women enjoy getting older. I think when I first wrote the first book in 1996, I took it to America and they were horrified. They were absolutely horrified. They,
They
they,
weren't ready for Valerie quite yet.
they would have lynched me if they could, because they said it was all about older women and younger men. You see how to mate them, date them, and marry them. And they loved it in LA and Chicago and New York and all that, but the rest of America did not,
Mhm.
and made life very difficult. So I ran out of America with that one. Took me a while to write the next one. Of course, in between, I became the sex columnist at the Toronto Sun.
Oh, yes,
Uh,
you did. Oh, yes, you did.
yeah,
Valerie,
I
look up to
I
your
love that.
camera. Look up at the top of your
Oh, up
computer.
the camera. Okay, will do. Let me
There
just
you
adjust.
go. We're used to doing things in
Oh,
face to
sorry.
face.
Face
So
to
I just
face.
want to see your gorgeous eyes. There you go.
Okay. Um, yeah, I became the
Sex
first
columnist.
first sex columnist, female sex columnist in Canada. They in the newspaper. They didn't. There were, I think, one in Playboy, one
Yeah.
in Details magazine, and myself. And again, when I became the sex columnist in that would have been 1996, I found that my own newspapers, I was with the Toronto Sun, own newspapers in Edmonton, Calgary, wouldn't touch it with a barge pole, they said,
Wow.
because
And look
yeah,
how
but
far
let me
you've
tell you
come.
why. They
What did
said,
they say?
because I used the proper names for parts,
Oh,
like
like
people.
vagina and penis and
Oh, in those days, that was absolutely a no-no. And I was furious because the editor called me into his office and said, you have to use other. I said, well, what do you call yours? And he just really fainted. But it was a huge success because there wasn't anything for married couples, women particularly. I was very keen on helping women with their sexual problems. Um, Free column, that you could get advice. And write in, and I would answer everything that was written in, every email, everything, just to
you are
help
a
them.
sex saint.
And I really loved helping people. I really did. And also, I was doing it from a standpoint of I had been through a hell of a life. And I had done everything pretty well. Never did drugs, but I had done everything in life. 5 marriages, got myself into entangles, all sorts, just like ordinary people do in a way. Got married too often, it all fell apart. Blah blah
Five
blah. I
five
had,
marriages. Valerie, you should be a divorce expert on
I,
top
I
of the sex
was, I
on
was,
on
uh,
top of
but
the sex expert. I know because you
but
know the
I
sort of what I do for a living as well. And That is so exciting and interesting. I think back 1996, and it doesn't seem that long ago, but to have, I mean, you've obviously seen such evolution for females, and being able to talk about things that are actually happening inside the bedroom, outside of the home, inside of the home. And you
And
have been one of those pioneers that have said, yeah, no, I'm going for it, straight ahead. And you've
yes,
always
I
been
did.
very authentic about it.
And it caused a stir at the time, but then it was the most popular column in the paper, of course. And Edmonton and Calgary ran it, loved it. My biggest fan club came from there, both of
Wow.
those places. But that led me into the book next, which was that I started and thought up the name Cougar. And I started the Cougar trend, of
The
course.
Cougar phase. I remember that.
Yeah, 2000, 2001. And again, I took it to America and I was on Dr. Phil and he said, "What the heck?" He said, "A cougar's an animal. What are you talking about?" And I said, "No, no, this is the new name for lovely women, sophisticated, independent, totally in command of their life. This is the new name for them. They want to date younger, just like men have done for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Women are
Bravo.
doing the same." But of course, still, the one in 1996 was, horrific to people. But by 2000, it was a little better, but it was still difficult. People still balked at the idea of an older woman dating a younger man.
And do
But
you think, can I ask you a question just for a second? Do you think that it was because, let's say you put a label on it saying the cougar? I mean, I think a cougar is so strong and sexy and so
yes, that
fearless
was
and
the
so
idea.
many protective and so many different things, right? But
Yeah,
do you
you're so
think it's
right.
because
You're
it was
so
a
right.
label put on it, or you were just
Well,
trying to
not
to
really,
trying to
because
level the playing field in my eyes?
yes, it did. But the thing was, at first, having a title. I mean, older men were called silver foxes. They had all their names, but the
Right.
women didn't because they weren't supposed to do that. So I came up with, I felt, a lovely, lovely animal, strong and knows what he wants or she wants, and takes command of its life. It was the perfect name. And I think at first, as I say, in America, they didn't know what to do with it because it was completely new. But he liked my book, Phil, and I went on all the talk shows and everything. And
I remember.
what happened, which I think was very sad, it was taken by the media, of which I'm a member of the media, but it was taken by the media, especially in America, um, and made sleazy. And it never was meant to be sleazy. It was meant to be very sexy, very cheerful, very upbeat, very much women, strong women in command. This was the whole idea of cougars. They were getting into their 40s and above and running their own businesses just like you and in command of their lives. And why shouldn't they be in command of their sex lives? That was the big bugaboo in society. No, they should not. Men make those decisions. Men propose. Men ask for sex. Women shouldn't. Why not? I just said,
Well,
why not? Yeah.
right. Why not? And it's funny you say that. I actually married somebody a little bit younger than me. And for me, part of my whole mission right now is regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless of social, religious, or financial status and everything else, everything is all just about being a human. And I married my husband not because he was younger. It was because, quite frankly, he could keep up with me. And I'm not just talking about the bedroom. I'm talking about we could strap on a pair of blades and go, rollerblading, or we could go for a hike or a bike ride. And I found when I was in the dating phase, and maybe there's some men much, much older than my husband that are in fabulous shape, but maybe they weren't available. I don't know. I just didn't seem to meet them. And it was, oh, my back hurts, my hip hurts, my Achilles. I get all that. We're getting old. I'm just not at that stage right now. And so
Right.
I met somebody that was my equal in
In
physically,
stamina.
physically, and yeah, and physically though, right?
Stamina.
Yeah.
Yes.
But also physically, he was able to keep up. And you know what? I love that. And you're right about, kind of putting a derogatory spin on cougars, because I was like, I know the woman that wrote that book, and I know she coined the phrase and she did not mean it in a sleazy way.
No, I did
They
not.
were like, no. And then
Sexy.
people are like,
Sexy is not
oh,
necessarily sleazy.
yeah. And they're like, oh, so you're a cougar now, huh? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I
What's that?
suppose if that's what you refer to me as, no problem, but depends on just the way that they would say it was
Yes.
sort of a put down, right? And
Yes.
at the end of the day, I mean, I don't let outside influences, affect me, but you could tell that they were turning what you actually created into a beautiful animal phrase, how to, maybe describe.
Be independent, how to be in control, how to have your whole. I mean, the women today of 40 plus are in control, many, many, many of them, because they do everything they want to do. I mean, if they want to divorce, they will. If they want to marry again, they will. If they want to start a business, they will. They couldn't do that years ago. You couldn't. It was always very the society was against women taking any kind of control. They're much better now. But you see, I always said
Still have a long way to go, but yes, I feel that
but let me say, Adrianne, I was on all those TV shows and I used to have the same phrase. And I said, I hope one day there will be no more cougars, because everybody will just accept it as an everyday relationship, like, gay people or other people, whatever you like. It's an older woman dating a younger man. So what?
yes,
It's an age thing. So what? And she can do what she likes because she's got control of her life. And I really
regardless
was
of
adamant.
age.
So I'm hoping now that I think people now think of it as sleazy, which is unfortunate because it never was
I
fun.
think some people, I wouldn't say all of them,
No, not
because
all. No, I agree. And I had fun. I mean, whilst that book was it was a bestseller and it took the name across the world. I had interviews I was giving in Peru, in Portugal, in
I
Japan.
know you traveled the
It
world.
went all across the world, as now known in the lexicon. A cougar woman is one who dates younger. Yay. So, but that doesn't mean to say that it makes women not happy to be known as a cougar. No, because I think it got made into a very sleazy thing of older women grabbing young men, reluctant young men. It's not. It was in the end of that book running its run. It was the younger men who were chasing the older women. Now the younger men chase older women. They want older women. They know how delightful they are. They know how wonderful they are, interesting, fascinating, wonderful in bed,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they want one. So they don't, and the older women don't want to marry them, generally speaking. No, why would you? You can have another younger man. So,
Trade him in for a pool boy. I told my husband he's staying. I told him I'm not trading him in for a newer version because that would just be unfortunate. But yeah, exactly. And I think it's all dependent on where you are in your life. Again, you've had 5 marriages. Some people have had 1 or 2, under their belt, and they're good. They've had their kids. They've elected not to have kids. They're gay, they're straight, they're bi. It really doesn't matter how you identify. In my world, world, regardless of gender, it's okay for you to make your choices. Your choices are just that, your choices. But I love how you can go back and say, well, yeah, 96, they wouldn't even publish my articles because I said the word penis and vagina. And now I can't even turn on, the radio, and there's F-bombs and all these other things going.
Oh, yeah, it's everything goes now. Everything. Then, no, women still couldn't rise high in jobs. They couldn't be presidents of companies, big companies. It was all very different in 1996. And as you said, exactly, it wasn't that long ago. And yet, at that time, I remember there was a lot of shock when Calvin Klein showed, I think it was one of the models
Titties.
in showing her underwear or slightly or something.
I think it was breasts too.
Yes, yeah.
Oh my
And I
God.
have to tell you this, Adrianne, because the editor-in-chief was a very bright spark, my editor-in-chief at the Sun, and he took a photo of, or had a photo taken of my legs, and when I first started that column on sex and relationships.
And you've got great legs. I'm gonna have to pull up a photo.
He published it. Well, the TTC refused to post it on their buses or on anything because it showed a wee bit of flesh above the stocking, just a half an inch. You see, now this is 1996. So there was, he made hay, because he made hay out of nothing. He had a contest in the Sun. Should Valerie's legs be on the TTC? And, yes, and of course, everybody said yes. And it was a great success. And my legs were on bus shelters, 6 foot high.
I know. Oh, we are going to pull those.
The slogan was, Valerie's columns get noticed. And it was the legs, you know. And it was rather clever, I thought. It was a very clever stance in its own way. But it was still difficult for people to understand that women could be open about their sexuality. I used to write about my own sexuality and my own goings on and dating and whatever I was doing, or my marriage or lack thereof. You know, it was all honest, outspoken stuff that other people related to.
It was authentic. I mean, you know, even what I Am Unbreakable, the whole basis is authenticity and storytelling.
Yes, exactly.
And if you remember, prior to Zoom and the internet and television and radio, people sat around a fire or sat in their homes, and that's how children and men and women learned, was through storytelling. And so how unique to come full circle and do the exact same thing. Valerie, before we get too far gone on the evolution and the continued evolution and what you provide other women as such, you've been a huge mentor to me, and I know to hundreds and thousands of other females and males and anybody else who wants to listen to you, because you have a wealth of knowledge. I'm very saddened by what we spoke of earlier, and I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about that, if that's okay with you.
Yes, it is indeed.
Well, so when we spoke and I said, how are you? You gave me this very, very sad news of your daughter. Would you mind to share what you said?
Yes, not many people knew, and not because I hid it, but because I wrote about it occasionally, very rarely, in the paper, but not many people knew I had a mentally challenged and very disabled daughter, lovely, lovely girl, just a wonderful girl. And
her name?
Sarah. And I was 19 when she was born, just 19, barely 19. And I remember I lived in a day and age, and people won't like what I'm going to say, lived in a day and age in England where they didn't want challenged people. They didn't like them. They were afraid of them. They shut them in institutions and hoped they died. In fact, my father said to me, you put her in an institution, you throw away the key and hope she dies. And I remember at that moment, I decided that this child would be my responsibility for the rest of her life. And she would have a damn good life. She was going to get a good life. And I was going to provide it without fail.
Everything.
Everything. Yes. She had a wonderful time. She went to Disney World in America. She traveled all over Europe, far more than I did, actually. And she rode horses in England when she was much younger. I met Princess Anne, and she just lived in a home which was, and I have to quickly tell you how that happened. I hunted at that time. I was a teenager still. I had this idea that it seemed to me there was no reason why my daughter shouldn't have a good life like everybody else within her limitations. And where was this? In other words, it was integration, but there wasn't a word like that. Nobody had ever thought of that. And I hunted for 6 years in England for a home, a place where they believed in giving children of this nature a life, a wonderful life, free and in their limitations and well looked after, and that she could enjoy all the things, mostly anyway, that ordinary children did, how it didn't exist. I heard out of the grapevine of a place in Jersey in the Channel Islands, that's a little group of islands, tax havens off the northeast coast of France, that there was a woman who had experimented. She was a principal of a school. She experimented in her school, introducing challenged children into the mainstream. Well, this was absolutely a bombshell.
Revolutionary. Yeah.
Bombshell. And the parents of the able-bodied children complained bitterly, said they would take their children out of there. They didn't want the morons and cretins, mixing with their kids. All these words were used in those days. And anyway, she persisted and had great success with it, with the whole thing. The able-bodied kids met a challenged person, for a child, for the first time in their life. The challenged people pulled themselves up to level themselves with the able-bodied. It was such a success. And I flew over to see, and I decided this is what I dreamed of, integration into life. And I went back home and brought my daughter over there. You had to establish residency. The island, you can't just move there. It's just a very closed society. And it was a 35, 40-year plan.
Well, but your vision
system.
was that it didn't matter what it took. You were already that cougar that was going to protect her child and give her the best life she could in a very integral, honest, loving way. And like you said, within her limitations, but you weren't dropping her somewhere and throwing away the key.
No.
And I just want to say, I don't know, I got to ask the question, did your father ever apologize or acknowledge what he said?
No,
He ever...
They had nothing to do with my daughter. My mother said she was ugly and clumsy, and she wasn't perfect. My mother liked perfection. No, my family didn't want to know. I was a kid myself and on my own, and my marriage broke up because my husband couldn't cope. That is not unusual, Adrianne, in marriages where you have challenged children. It can break up because the strain or one of them can't manage it, to deal with it.
My heart still goes out to you. I'm sorry. I can't help feeling, even though it's different today, I can't help feeling like I just want to give you a hug. If you were here, I'd be,
nice of you. But I got out of that marriage, so he had to go.
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't talking about the husband. Forget the husband. I was talking about your daughter and the lengths you went to, as this is like the love of a mother, moving and researching in a day and age where that did not happen. I mean, my story is nothing even comparison to yours, but I remember having anxiety as a young child and going to my mom and saying, Mom, I feel like worried, there's nothing situational. I'm like I don't even think the word anxious was around. I think I said worried. And she was kind of like, shh, don't tell anybody. They're going to lock you up in 999 Queen Street. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I won't say anything. And away I went. Right. And I just kind of, suffered through it for the next several decades until, the world caught up to what we were all going through. But, how beautiful. So,
I also, if I may interrupt, Adrianne, you have to know, or people have to know, that in that day and age, there were no support services, no social services. There was nothing. You put these people and children into an institution and walked away. I did not. I refused to do that. No. And so that was my responsibility for the whole of my life. And I think I moved on to another marriage. And unfortunately, he said he loved me, he loved my child. We moved in, of course, married and that. And then he turned around and said, I hate your child. As long as you keep her well away from me, we'll get along just fine. Bye-bye, number two. It had to,
Always your children first.
Always Sarah first, always Sarah first. Everything was the focus of my life. I mean, I've had quite a life. I made a life and I made a career as well. but it all had to be so that I could afford a good life for her. That was the most important thing. I was not going to let go and have her put away or something awful. But she ended up, just quickly to say, in the most wonderful place, totally integrated in a village or where everybody knew them. They were just happy, ordinary people shopping in cinemas, shopping in grocery stores, going to cinemas, just normal life. 24-hour, 7 days a week supervision. And she had a wonderful life. And
you did this all yourself.
I'm proud of that, when she had to go into a nursing home at the end just for a year and a half. But I was happy that she had that before she died. COVID got her, COVID
That's what I
pneumonia,
wanted to say. So she passed when, Valerie?
a year ago. Well, not even a year, 9 months ago, actually. Yeah,
I'm
so
so
I'm still
sorry for
recovering.
your loss. It's unimaginable to
Yeah,
bear.
I think I mentioned you on the phone, Adrian. I lost my focus of my life. Right, yes. So I made a big success in a career here in Canada. I came here to make the money to pay for all this wonderful stuff, and it worked. And I worked very hard. And I had my own TV show where I did Valerie, which
Yeah,
people called in on the phone for advice and got free advice on the TV live. They
I
didn't
love
see
that.
them, just me. And that was all. That was a huge success with all the cultures, all different cultures. You see, they all have sex problems, relationship problems, marital problems. Everybody, it doesn't matter what religion you are, what culture you come from, everybody has the same sort of problems. Some more difficult than others, perhaps, but I think that was interesting. They all called in on the TV show, and I gave them instant advice. It was not go and see your priest or go and do this or that. No, I gave them two scenarios. There are two things you could do here. This is what I did, and this is what happened to me, and this is what you could choose which way you want to go and how you want to solve it. And I think that was why it was so popular. There was no preaching, no preaching. I don't preach,
They
I
were
help.
tips. They were tips. And I think
Yes.
that's why people really did gravitate towards you. But we're going to end up the show in a few minutes with maybe 3 of your top tips. But I just want to also just go back to Sarah and honor her life, but
Thank you.
also really honor you as a independent, strong woman in a day and age where you had no support. Not only did you not have the support of, like you said, of social services or any kind of support, you didn't even have your family's support, and you still rose above it all, and you still said, hell to you all, I am doing this. This is my child, my responsibility, and I'm going to give her the best life I can. And you did. And I celebrate you. I don't even have words, knowing everything about you and what you did for her, and her going to Disney and just having a beautiful life. And
I love
how
that.
different could her life have been if she didn't have a strong woman like you as a mom?
I don't want to think about that. I really don't, because
I
I
know.
know what
No, I'm
happened
not
to
saying
everybody
I'm not
else.
asking you to go there.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm trying
It's
to
just
just,
that now she's passed. I can look back and say there wasn't a stone unturned to make her happy and have her happy. She laughed all her life. She had a wonderful smile. Everybody fell in love with her. Everywhere she went, she had this wonderful smile. Even when in pain, she was in pain a lot. She was a wonderful kid, and I miss her terribly. But on the other hand, I just know she's at peace, and
and
she
that's
had a.
all, and that's all that matters. But what I was trying to say is, there's a lot of women now today that are suffering in very similar situations as you. And just what you have gone through is somewhat unheard of without any support. Now, today, there are a lot of support systems for women and children, and they can definitely do it, but people are often terrified, but you were not. So that's what I want to celebrate, is you being female, being fearless, having a vision and going for it. You didn't have a plan. You didn't write it out. You just knew what you were going to do and you went for it, which is sort of your MO in everything, that, you know the end goal, you'll get there, you're educated, you're smart, you're kind, and you got to where you wanted to be.
I'm unbreakable. There
Yes,
we are.
you are, my friend. So can I ask you in closing, and there's a part 2 to this coming soon, and we will talk about all fun things, dating and sex and all the other fun things people love to chat about. What would you say would be your top 3 tips for people that now, just prior to the pandemic, because I'm in the business of private investigation, and obviously a lot of our cases are family law. So we deal a lot with infidelity, divorce, separation, child custody, etc. So a lot of people, then you shut the world down and you enclose 2 people that already have like a ton of issues. That the divorce rate is just through the roof. So now you've got a bunch of single people that are 40 plus. What tips would you give people today?
I think don't be worried about being single, because I think you're in the best time ever to be single. The biggest growing demographic, for instance, in Canada is single people over 50. And also not to worry about your age. I never worried about my age. I am way up there. But 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, even 90 nowadays. Remember that if you've hit 40 and you've got another 50 years to live, an adventure, untrodden ground, you can go out there and do whatever you please if you want to or not. It doesn't matter, whatever you think. But do see aging as an adventure, as something into which you can plunge and do all these things, or just take time off and go on holidays or do whatever. Start a business, whatever you want to do. If you want to remarry or date younger men, if you're women, or if you're a man, you want to do whatever, travel all over the world. You should do it. Age should not be a factor. The factor, of course, is aging. And when you get much older, it's probably ill health or something you may. But there is ill health when you're 22. So try to think that this is part and parcel of the adventure. And that's what I want to urge people to enjoy aging and not see it as an abyss of decay and divorce and dismay and all the things. I've had women say to me, oh my God, I'm going to be 45. What am I going to do? And I say, you're going to live for another 40 years plus. And you're going to make the most of it and enjoy it. Come on. And
exactly, because you're putting a positive spin on it. I mean, my mother, God bless her, she's 87. She swims, on a daily basis. She runs up and down. I think she had both knees replaced at 80 something. Wow. She's like, oh, I think they're getting old now. I think I'll replace them. I'm like, they've been telling you that for 30 something years. You're deciding this now. She's like, hell yes, I am. And running up and down the stairs. And, she's like, oh, I've got a little bit of arthritis. I'm like, look, at 87, if I've got a little bit of arthritis, I'm doing like the tango girl. Like,
yes. And so I think the other tip I would
your mindset
is for people to stand up to this whole ageism thing. And they say, oh, it's wear and tear. That's the doc's favorite thing. Just stand up to people who say, no, you can't do that. No, you can't wear that. You can't, not at your age. All those expressions, women get them more than men do. And that's unfortunate, because to hell with it. You can wear what you like. Doesn't matter. If you enjoy it, you like it, you feel good in it. This is how life should be led, the way you want it.
100%. And Valerie, it's funny you say that, because I keep saying to my mom, as soon as I come home with something new, she's like, oh, I want one of those. And I'm like, so we're twinning again, right, Mom? She's like, yes, I like the flare. She is like, she wears all kinds of designer stuff. I wear it. She needs one too. And I'm like, hell yeah, you do. You
love her already.
Yeah, you don't need to be a granny. I'm like, let's go. But, I think, like you said, it's totally mindset. And again, you are setting such a positive influence for people that are, look, the one thing is, the only thing guaranteed in life is birth and death. And the other thing is that every second you get a little bit older, but it, like you said, it doesn't have to be a negative. You're changing everybody's narrative again, and you're telling people it is a beautiful thing. So thank you for that.
Not at all. My pleasure, Adrianne. Really lovely to talk to you.
Oh, it's so great to speak to you and to see you. And our next will be live. Thank you, Valerie.
Okay, thank you, my dear. You take care and let me know. Bye-bye.
Good. Okay, don't hang up. Oh, did you go? No, okay, good.
No,
So we're gonna stop the filming right now. Wait 1 second. But you are so fabulous. We could talk for hours and hours and hours.
Yes, I'm afraid so. Yes.
I would love to do one. Where are you? Because I know before you were in Etobicoke, right?
Yeah, still there, still at the same house, 32 years in the same house.
God bless. Well, so my office where you see all the
Yes.
Marilyn Monroe's and Elvis's and all those fun guys.
Yes.
Yes, we're right at Matheson, sort of near Renforth and Eglinton.
Oh, not far away. Not far away. I'm at Dundas and Islington approximately.
You're probably 15
Go
minutes
up the road.
Yeah, are you driving still?
Oh yes. Oh, you're kidding? Oh, just let me tell you, I'm at 80 and I'm 83, by the way. At 80, I bought a sports car. A fabulous sports car, bright orange.
What did you buy?
Miata, Mazda Miata, limited edition, bright orange, hot.
Of course you did. I wouldn't have thought it would have been any other color but orange.
Oh yes, no.
And it's funny, Mazda, so you.
I guess my friends, but not really. But they said, "Oh my gosh!" But I get a kick out of that car because it's fun, it's young, it's exciting, it's wonderful to drive.
So you're gonna come pick me up. Never mind me picking you up. Forget that.
I used to rally drive in England when I was younger. I was a rally driver, so I'm very keen on sports.
What else have you not done?
I'll just throw a tidbit at you, not for now, of course, but
I
was the first ever in Britain, the first professional scuba diver in Britain. Ever, 1961, 62. And there were only 3 women scuba divers in the world. There was one in Australia, Valerie Taylor, her name was, and one in America. There was just the 3 of us. And I have a huge story of how I fought the whole establishment of male sub-aqua club and so on to get to be in the whole thing. I was married that time to another scuba diver, but the whole thing, they said no way because it's a man's sport, it's very dangerous. And I said, where does it say that in your rule book? No, it doesn't, but that's the way. I said, no way. And I had to fight. But I went out and I was 6 years. I was a professional scuba diver.
So the next one that we're going to do, and if you're available next week, I would love for you to come in studio. I want to talk about all this because these are the things people, are still so, kind of up in arms that, women don't have equal pay and equal rights. And I agree. But I only tell people, like I always say, because I'm also a certified life coach through Tony Robbins now, but I always tell people, and many different therapists say, never look back. I always say, look back to see how far you've come, right? And we have come far, but you are a trailblazer with your orange hair and your orange Mazda Miata. Oh, girl, I cannot wait to go for
it. I considered buying a sports car at 80 to be a good thing and an exciting thing. And anyway, I don't care. But the thing is about the whole thing of that was the scuba diving, for instance, was one area. And I marched in all the marches for women's rights and women's wages to be the same. And I did all of that. And I fought all of those things. But this was a particular area that not many people know very much about, that I was the first woman scuba diver in Britain.
I love that. But those are the kinds of stories people need to hear. even one of, and it's only
Fascinating,
because
actually,
I
world.
started telling my story. I was the first female that took auto in my high school because they put girls into sewing and home ec. The
Yes,
boys
yeah,
got to go to
same
auto.
with me, same
And
with
I
me.
was like, hell no, I want to go twist a wrench. And they were like, nope, back into sewing and cooking. And every
Yes,
day for 3 weeks, I went and I bugged my principal. And finally, he's like, I'm like, I just need to know why. And they're like, just because this is the way it is. And then finally it's like,
yes,
fine, because you're a girl. And I was like, oh, you said that out loud. He's like, okay, fine, go
yes.
into auto.
That
You're
was
going to
the
get your
favorite
nails
saying,
done.
yeah, not for women. I mean, when I became a reporter, my first at the age of, so I went to work at 16, and they said the same. No, this is a male profession. It's men reporters, men everything. You couldn't do anything. They said you can be a secretary. I said no, I want to be a reporter. Well, you can't. I said, well, what can I do
Yeah,
that you'll agree to? And they
exactly.
made me what they called a copy boy. A copy boy was running up and down stairs, taking copy from one editor to another editor. And in
That's
the end, I was so persistent. They gave me the baby shows and dog shows. Right.
oh, yay. That is hilarious. Well,
I
to
have
this
a
day,
million stories.
oh, I can't wait because to this day we're going to exchange stories. And your stories are way better. But it was saying people will still call my company, and the odd time when I do pick up, they're like, "Oh, can I speak to one of the owners or an investigator?" I'm like, "You are." Well, can I
Yes,
speak to the
really.
other owner? I'm like, "You are."
Oh,
Did you need to speak to a man? Well, yeah. And I'm like, well, no, you could, because they're going to come to me and ask me anyways. So there you
yeah,
go. Valerie,
yeah. Okay, Adrian.
love to you.
Same to
Thank
you.
you.